right. Great day today. We got a second podcast of the week, Prospect Podcast. Coach Schumann here. I have Coach D to my right, and we have the Assistant AD of Athletic Performance for football over at the University of Tulsa with us today, Coach Joseph Garcia, and we're excited to talk to him about what they're doing over at Tulsa. Coach was also, I think, at FAU before that. Really has emerged as one of the top performance guys, young performance guys in the country, and is really a fast riser. So we're excited to talk to him about some of the stuff that he's doing in his program, and we'll dive right into that. Coach, if you could kind of go into welcome to the podcast, Coach. First of all,
yeah, appreciate you having me on, man.
It's great. I'm glad you could take a little time to chat with us, and so we're excited to talk about this. This is a hot topic that we touch on a lot on our podcast, so we always love when we talk to college guys and what they're doing from that standpoint, and what they're doing from a development standpoint. Talk about your career as far as what sports playing up until this point, and then obviously your career and performance, and kind of what led you into Tulsa.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing baseball and football, basically since I'm about 5 years old. Grew up Bronx, New York originally. Parents pulled me out of New York and moved me down to Florida, Naples to be exact, when I was going into high school. Just thought it'd be a better environment for me. Played at Gulf Coast High School. Had a decent prep career. Was a recruited guy, and this is a cautionary tale to all you guys in high school: is like, make sure you take care of your grades. I was a guy that had an opportunity to go to a Big Ten school. Told a lot of other schools that were recruiting me basically like, I'm good. Like, I don't need to talk to anybody else. I was feeling myself a little bit, and then didn't make my ACT score, and kind of happened in a 2-day period leading up to signing day. So, by the time I got back around to some colleges that recruited me in the previous past, they were already full. So it was a very humbling moment for me as a person, and it's a good reminder that, you're never as good as you think you are. You're never as bad as you think you are either, but, make sure you have some humility in your life. And went the JUCO route. I went to College of the Canyons and had a really good career there. I was very fortunate to work, to be coached by Garrett Tuje, who's now the O-line coach at North Carolina State, and played with some really, really good dudes, and made some really good bonds. And, if anyone knows, like, the California JUCO system's not for the faint of heart, because you're paying your way.
Cool.
You're living in apartments with, 8 to 10 guys. Like, that's real, like, that's some of the things. And my family, we're lower middle class, and they, my dad's under the mind frame of, hey man, you got to grow up and you got to grow up quick. So here's $100 in a Bank of America account, figure it out. And it's the best thing that's probably ever happened to me. They dropped me off 7 days after graduation. They said, here's a bus pass in that Bank of America account. You get to it and figure out life. And, I'm very appreciative of the fact that they were that hard on me, and that they pushed me in that retrospect. I played 2 years there, had an opportunity to go to FIU, Florida International. I built this idea up, a Division I ball up in my head, what it was going to be, and this and that. And then I got there, and I just be real with you, I was completely disappointed. And I was there for roughly about 4 months before I decided. I got a call from Kalen DeBoer, of all people, who's at Alabama now. He was at University of Sioux Falls, and he goes, hey, I heard you don't like it there, and we win national championships. We're going to win one next year. Do you want to be a part of it? And I was sight unseen, never been to South Dakota in my life. I said, yes, sir. I'm coming. Let's go. Let's make it happen. So I got my butt up there. Won a national. He was like a prophet. We won a national championship my junior year. We were runners up my senior year. The seniors record was 56-3 overall. Those guys that have been there 4 years. We knocked off an FCS school. And to be honest with you, like, we won a lot of games at College of the Canyons, but I got a PhD in winning culture from Kalen DeBoer and from the University of Sioux Falls, and those guys and those leaders on that team. Figured out that I wanted to be a strength coach early. I had a strength coach at College of the Canyons named Dos Remedios, and I'm like, you get paid to do this? Like, you get paid just to train us? Like, this is something you can do? And he's like, absolutely. I was like, well, put me on the path, man. What I got to do it? And he's like, got an exercise science degree and do some internships and get connected to the right people. So, I ended up getting an exercise science degree and a bachelor's, and Interned going into my senior year, interned after my senior year at FAU, and then got right into a graduate assistantship at Northwestern State. It's a funny story. I got the job on a Wednesday, had to take the GRE on Thursday, and then I started driving on Friday. I passed the GRE by 2 points, what was recommended to get into the master's program, without preparing for it. So, like, that was a blessing, because if I would have failed that and not been able to go, man, I don't know where
Yeah.
the hell I would have been.
Winging it. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
hell
getting
yeah. And,
after it.
and my wife now, who was my fiance at the time, like, she's like, I was like, we're going to Natchitoches, Louisiana. She's like, where? I'm like, Natchitoches.
Yeah.
And we had to look up how to say it, because like we didn't, like, the spelling is insane, right? Like, so she's my ride or die, man. She hopped in the car with me and we took off. We stayed on an apartment floor, because we didn't have any money, for about 2 months, on an air mattress, until we got some money together to buy a couch and do those things. And it was a great experience. I was a graduate assistant there for a year, knocked all my coursework out. And a lot of my mentors always pointed again towards Tommy Moffitt at LSU. They're like, you need to get associated with Tommy Moffitt. Tommy Moffitt is the gold standard in this profession. Tommy Moffitt, if you can show you can work, he'll get you a job. He'll take care of you. And so, I kept making trips down to Baton Rouge. I would drive down there at least once a month, most of the time, probably twice a month, and just observe. And I told him, I said, Coach, I want to work for you. I don't care if it's free. Like, I'm done with my coursework. I'm going to be ready to go in April, end of April. Like, whatever it takes to be down here is where I want to be. So I went down there planning to be there a year and work for free. And it's funny how life works, because like, I'm down there 3 weeks and I get a call to interview for the head strength job at Northwestern State, back where I was. And I ended up getting that job, which is crazy. I was their last choice. I was their cheapest choice, and just,
Whatever works. Whatever
hey,
works.
that's one thing I know about this business. It doesn't matter how you get the job, as you get the job.
Right.
And I took my butt back up there. There was 2 GAs that I've never met waiting on me, and we had a in service at about 3 a.m. in the morning. We had our first lift group at 6, run group at 6. We attacked the day. I went home, went to bed at about 4 p.m. and slept about 16 hours after that. And then I got married a week later, which was even crazier. And then I was there 2.5 years, man. And we took a program that was 4-8 that first year I was there, and we went 6-6 my last year. And if you look at Northwestern State's history, like 6-6 is one of its best records in like the last 30 years. So to me, that's a major accomplishment, for what we got. We won 4 games in the month of November, and we ended on a high note for those seniors. And that, I got a call from Paul Jackson, and he was at Ole Miss, and he said, "Hey, you in the truck yet?" And I said, "No, I'm on the way to the truck now." So drove up to Ole Miss, had the opportunity to be there, and just to see the level similar to like Moffitt. When I first watched my first workout I watched at LSU, I was enamored. I was like, this is the level and the intensity that it needs to be done at, right? The attention to detail, the coaching. It's just it almost puts you in like a trance. Like, you can't believe what you're seeing. And I got to experience that firsthand at Ole Miss under Paul Jackson. And I had 4 years to learn and develop under him, and with a whole bunch of assistants that are just elite. Dominic Stadinsky, who's at Auburn now, is the head guy. He's actually one of my college teammates too. Lanier Coleman, who's with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Julian Whitehead is with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Anthony Crosby, who's out of it but was an elite coach. Like, it was an atmosphere where you had to get better. You had to get better. There was no choice. And advanced me significantly, man. And, I had 4 years there, and I got a call from Ryan Davis, and he offered me way more money than I'd expect him to offer me. And he was like, come up to Colorado State. And I was up there with him for a year. And he ends up getting the Maryland job, and he puts me up for the head job there. And Mike Bobo gave me the opportunity to be the head strength coach there for a year. Unfortunately, we got let go at the end of that year, and that's how it goes. And Adazio comes in, and
That happens.
yeah, and Adazio came in, and he was, he had no intention of keeping me. Like, he walked through the weight room and didn't even shake my hand. I'll never forget it. I was like, I called my wife right now. I said, put the for sale sign on in front of the house, please. I was like, we got to get this thing expedited. I ain't no shot I'm getting kept here. You fast forward 2 weeks later, and he's trying to give me a significant raise, and it just so happens at the same time I was up for the FAU job. I got offered the FAU job, and with my parents being in Naples and having the grandkids that an hour and a half away from them, I couldn't turn it down. They were an 11-win team. I spent 5 years there. I was under 2 head coaches. Willie Taggart brought me there, which I'm extremely grateful for. Spent 3 years under Coach Taggart, and then when they transitioned to Tom Herman, I had the opportunity to stay on under Tom Herman for 2 years. And then, that chapter of my life concluded. How it goes. When you're winning, it's great. When you're losing, it's not. And, they had to make changes, and I get it's part of the business. And I was able to fail forward and land here under Trey Lamb, who is an absolute ball coach, who's one of the best I've ever seen. Just philosophically, me and him see eye to eye on everything, and just the way he runs the organization, the efficiency, the way he cares for the kids, the way he coaches too. Dude's a ball coach, and he's put together an elite staff here. And we're just trying to get this program turned around. We're trying to get them back to, their winning history. You look at Tulsa and what they've done prior to the last 5-6 years. They're a perennial 9-10 win team. They put guys in the NFL, and we're chomping at the bit to get that done and get it back restored and make a dent in this American Conference.
So then my first question definitely is what has to get done from your side of it to start to get those things in the right direction? What are some of those things that you had to do, steps you had to take in order to start moving that process along?
Yeah, the first bullet point under my job description is creator of the culture, right? So the first thing that you have to do when you get a job like this, and I've never worked with Coach Lamb prior to this, so the first thing I got to do is I have to understand and align completely with what his vision is, what his standards are, what his pillars of his program are, and I have to be able to speak his language, right? He doesn't have to speak my language. I'm not coming in here and installing my program. I'm coming in here from a cultural standpoint and installing his system, his culture. So the first thing was I had to learn him. I had to learn what was important to him. I had to learn how he operated. I had to learn, what are the things we're looking for as far as when you turn the tape on what you want our team to look like, and that's CCD, that's care, consistency, and discipline. He wants guys that care about each other. He wants a team that's connected and cares. He wants a team that is not up and down, where we play pretty much the same level of ball, good or bad, consistently. He wants a team that's not going to make self-inflicted, issues or penalties, or that's undisciplined, So those are things that we hammer in our program that are pillar culturals. So for me, it was, you get this team that hasn't won. You get this team that just, I'll be honest with you, there was a lot of doubt and a lot of disbelief, and they weren't very trustworthy at first, just because of some of the circumstances they've been through. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing was, we got to establish trust. We got to establish trust with these players. So my first thing was I had to have them see that I'm here for them and I'm here to add value to them, and I'm going to be here no matter what. That's we open the weight rooms up on Saturdays, and it's something that, Dave Feely does it at Duke, and there's a lot of other people that do it that I stole it from, but we call it burgers and barbells. And I was like, I want these kids to be able to come here and eat and get extra work and know there's a place on Saturday, even though we're not supposed to be up here, that they could come and hang out with us and see us in a different light, right? I wanted to establish that. I wanted them to understand, if you text me, I'm gonna call you. I ain't gonna text you. I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna talk to you. Or my door is always open if you want to come spend an hour and just get to know you. I want to know you, not the player, but the person. And I think that from a cultural standpoint, the biggest thing we had to do is we had to define what our culture is supposed to look like. We have to define it. So we defined what care looked like. We defined what discipline looked like. We defined what consistency looked like. We defined the fact that we're going to add value into every single one of these kids, and we're going to do it in a systematic way over time through a curriculum that we've created, right? So getting these kids to understand that and define it, and then we had to teach it to them. So every day there was a teaching point. Every day there's a cultural curriculum item that's going to be discussed, and we're going to give them examples of that through YouTube videos or examples in the newspaper or games the night before or whatever it is. We're going to give them a visual example of that. We're going to follow it up with the verbal instruction of it. Okay. And then we're going to point it out when they're doing it in the sessions, right? Because it's not good to just be, hey, here's a highlight of Ray Lewis talking about effort. I want you guys to give more effort, and then you leave it at that. I'm in the middle of a conditioning session. I'm like, Elijah Potts is the definition of our effort right now. match his effort. Like this guy's effort right now is exactly what we're looking for, what we're trying to build. Like, and I'm telling our kids that, right? Because you have to reinforce it. And then the last thing is like we had to make sure that we demanded it from them all the time, and that's the consistency side of it
Right.
from as a coach. You know, like the easiest thing in the world is to let a kid get away with something, right? Just to not deal with conflict, and all it does is hinder the progress as a culture. You know, and we're very fortunate. We have a great group of character kids, man. We really do. Like I'm blessed. You know, I our kids are bought in. They bought in damn near week one, hook, line, and sinker, and just been like, yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir. Like, tell me what I got to do. And you know, we've consistently poured into them from a personal standpoint. You know, like this is our bye week. You know, we went through a rough stretch. You know, the last what is it? Two opponents. I mean, they have one loss and they have 12 wins. You know, we're playing some stiff competition, and like the first thing on a bye week, a coach would want to do is systematically, how do we get better personnel? Who do we got to change? All these things. The first thing Coach Trey Lamb said, and this is why I love him, and this is why we align so well, is like, how do we connect to our guys as kids better this week? How do we spend more time? How do we spend more time with these kids off the football field? How do we discuss and talk to them more about what's going on in their personal lives? Like, how do we recapture their hearts if they're not 100% on board or things aren't going their way right now? If they're not starting, and we're going to need them later on in the season. So, that's a lot of what we're built upon here is servant leadership, players first, man. Like developing the kid, not the number. And we're going to continue to do that because when your players are like they're gonna when they're bought in, they're gonna play harder for you. And you can navigate these hard circumstances. I've been on teams where they just completely gave up. Like I've been there before, and it's not a good feeling. And versus like, all right, like we Memphis kicked our ass. I mean, there's no easy way to put it. They whooped us, and the biggest takeaway was not kids who felt bad that they lost, but they felt like they disappointed us because they cared so much,
Right.
and that they thought they could win. And that's a big part of it. If you feel belief, especially after a hard stretch like that, like that's major. That speaks volumes to where these kids are mentally and just what we've created here.
I think that's a huge building that belief and that culture. That's the hardest thing about turning it around. And obviously, you got a really good win against Oklahoma State, I think it was, which
Yes,
was
sir.
which was, but that up and down. That's the thing you're trying to start to correct is the up and down, up one week, down next week, or whatever. Talk about first of all, your head coach Trey Lamb is one of the youngest coaches probably in all of college football. What kind of energy is the vibe that you guys are really trying to bring to it? Like, and what are you guys doing to kind of continue to bring that energy and so players continue to have enthusiasm? Because that's the hardest thing, obviously, in rebuilding the program is continued enthusiasm while you may not be winning as many games as you like. You know what I mean? How do you guys do that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because all right, Trey Lamb's 36. I'm 36. At the previous staff I was at, I was the second youngest guy. Here, I'm one of the I think I'm the third oldest guy.
Right,
Which is
right,
crazy, right? Like it just flips. But it speaks to kind of the college landscape a little bit, right? You look at
right,
some of these G5 jobs, they're the rehab job. It is what it is. Like some of
right,
the coaches been around 20, 30 years.
100%, man.
And it's like, all right, well, he got fired from this job, so I'm taking this job. And you get a bunch of guys in the building that have been at big places, and I'm not trying to knock anyone here. Like, there's no one
right, right,
specific, but
right,
you know, I had the feeling when I went to Colorado State from Ole Miss. I'm like, oh, I've been in Ole Miss. Like, this is Colorado State. Like, you get like an ego about you, and then
right.
Yeah.
you're almost ungrateful for what you got, or you don't.
Right.
You take for granted what's going on, and the process and everything you're still trying to do. So, like for us, like Coach Lamb's a FCS guy through and through, right? Like he's born, bred, raised as a coach through FCS. Like, yeah, his uncle was at Georgia a long time, and he experienced that. And his cousin was up is the quarterback coach of Virginia, right?
Right. Does volume go out?
Did I lose you?
I think we lost your volume. His volume.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Is he? Let me see. Yeah, I can hear you. It must be his volume.
He might accidentally hit something or something.
Maybe it's yeah, because it's not on.
For some reason, his volume is gone.
Let me see.
You got me?
Oh, I got you now.
Yeah. You're good. You're good.
Maybe you got a call
Yeah,
that came into something. That's probably what it was because you're on
It's
your
all
phone,
good.
right?
It happened.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah, it happened.
What'd you guys get?
You're good.
You had just started about Trey and how he was an FCS guy.
Yeah, I mean, so to him, this is the biggest job he's ever had.
Right. Got it.
Right.
So how could you not bring that energy, enthusiasm in? And for our staff, we got a bunch of young guys that are fast risers that are on the same wavelength, that are on the same mentality and perspective. Like this is the biggest job they've ever had. Like
Right.
they're not trying to let him down, and they're not thinking about the resources they don't have. They're thinking about, man, look at all the stuff we do have. You know,
Exactly.
and
That's a great viewpoint. Like, and you think about that, that's just right. Cause like you said, like even when you start feeling yourself a little bit, right, going from Ole Miss to Colorado State, and like you said, these guys don't know any better and they're trying to rise and do what they want to do. So for them, it's okay, well, we have this, like, let's go get it, right? Let's get after it, right? It's the same. And that, like, players feel that. They recognize real, right? Like, and for them, I would assume, like most of them, for them to just be at Tulsa is rewarding, right? It's not, oh, well, I could be here, I should be there. That's a chip on their shoulder that they're going to play with. Am I right in saying that? That's kind of how they look at it, Joe?
no, absolutely. You know, you get a bunch of guys that, again, like you inject that energy and that enthusiasm, and like the coaches, when the coaches set the tone of like, hey man, like we're at Tulsa, not we're at Tulsa. No, it's we're at Tulsa, man. Like this is big time. Like we're gonna take this thing up a notch. We're gonna compete in the American. We're gonna do these things, and then they act it out through their behaviors, and their energy is high. Like the way that they coach, the way that they invest, the way they connect to players, because they are a little bit younger and they kind of get this generation. You know, like it speaks volumes
Right.
to the players, and the players get this belief, like, yeah, man, like why not us? Like I point out, and I like to do this, but I'll point out, I'll be like, listen, we don't have an indoor, we don't have, you know, the $1 million budget, you know, that everyone else might have, but like that's a good thing. That's going to keep us humble. Like that's who we are. We're blue collar kids. We're blue collar team. Like we want to be the tough, scrappy, I don't want to play them type team. Like that's what we're trying to build here. We're trying to be a team when you turn on the tape. Like we're tough. Well, that goes into like really embracing your resources and embracing that head coach. Like our head coach does not, like, you can't talk to him after a loss, and it's not because he's emotional, it's because he cares that much and he's that competitive, right? So for me, it's that kids see that and feed off that because he's like that in practice. You know, our coaches are like that in practice. You got defense, offensive coaches, you know, chirping at each other and pushing each other. They don't want to lose a good on good period. And when you have that right there, it injects that excitement. It injects that enthusiasm in there. You know, we talk about all the time. We want to be the most excited team to play on Saturdays. Like
Absolutely. And I think that's the I think that's where that when you're moving up and you're a young coach, and you're with obviously a head coach that's a young coach, that's where those continued opportunities come. Is that like they're willing to take those chances, you know, at upstart programs that need to reboot, right? Like Tulsa in this case, because I remember when I was an agent, I represented a couple of Tulsa players that were great. Mike Muda, who was the linebacker I represented too from there, was played at the same time period, but he decided not to go on. He just had a couple too many concussions. But they were great players, and they played in some really great teams there at Tulsa. And so there is a history there. I've been to where Tulsa is. I've been on their campus. I've been to their pro days. So I know what that place potentially really has. And obviously, football in Oklahoma is a big deal. So, you know, once players start to get buy-in on that, There's a culture that'll like really catch fire, I think, at Tulsa. And I think Tulsa is always one of those, especially in the conference you guys play in, is one of those always like when they're down, it's a sleeping gem. You know what I mean? Because there's great opportunity. Tulsa's a great city. Like it is really a great city. And there's tremendous opportunity there, but it's so I think those opportunities for them, because it's kind of now it's very interesting how Division I football has worked, where there's like areas that you could keep rising up, just like the players when some stuff with the transfer portal. There's a lot of things like that for the coaches as well, like to places to get their feet wet when they're younger, and then keep moving up. Kalen DeBoer is a great example of that. You know what I mean?
Great example.
He's a great. I mean, he's at the highest of the highest, obviously now, right? But he coached you. He was at that Division II level, and was unbelievable there. So I think that's really cool about how it works. And then you obviously have the guys that are the real experienced guys. So when Coach brought you in, was the thought process, hey, this guy has been at some big places and has seen how it works, and can we get some of that to where we are at Tulsa?
Yeah, I think the biggest selling point that I was trying to make with him is like, I've had the opportunity to be a part of a lot of programs that have won. And I understand what that recipe looks like. You get some guys that talk about winning and never experience winning.
Right.
And
they're not winners.
I mean, we had a saying in Sioux Falls, winners win, because that's what winners do. And it's one of those deals where like there's a recipe to it. I don't care what level of football. I tell people this all the time. I watch my son. He's 11 years old, all the way up until Alabama. When we were at Ole Miss, we won the Sugar Bowl. Like, the recipe is the recipe. Like, it is what it is. So when you get privy to that recipe, when you get insight into that recipe, like, that's valuable knowledge, especially when you experience it as a player and as a coach. And that's the biggest thing. The other side of it is I think that I sold to him was the fact that I've been at the highest level in the SEC, but I've also been at G5 and FCS. So in G5's the new FCS. Let's be real here, right? Like, we're a farm system. Like, it is what it is. Right. I don't think the level of play is dropped, but the way that you're operating is a lot different than you did 5-6 years ago. And and the biggest selling point for him is like, listen, I know what kind of athletes we're getting. I know how to develop these athletes. It's not the same as, you take over Alabama, like Scott Cochran had the famous quote. It's like, yeah, I got Bentleys, I'm just putting spinners on them. Like, right, I'm not, yes. I got a bunch of, he is right. And you get these elite athletes and elite kids, and yeah, we're blessed. I get a few elite guys, but for the most part, I'm working with, Honda Civics and CRVs, like, I'm not working with Escalades and Ferraris. Like, I'm not. And
no, and it's true. It's just what it is. And it's now, okay, look, but we can also get, a Honda Civic to look and run really, really well, right? And be something that's, reliable. And it's, also you're getting like you guys get guys with a little bit of a chip, right? And they got a different bit of mentality when they're coming in there in terms of, hey, I think I should be somewhere else, or, I got the short end of the stick, or they're just, a shade slower or an inch shorter, right? But they have that different type of mentality coming in there, kind of underdog-ish, like, we're just going to fight and get after it type of. Talk about that a little bit. Do you see that within the roster itself, especially as you're trying to turn this thing and get these guys to just buy in more? Is the attitude different than you've seen other places?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the emergence of how many transfers you guys get now, like, there's going to be staff attrition or, personnel attrition of up to 50 players on average. Like, it is what it is. Like, that's the nature of the beast. And the highest producers in the last 3 years that I've had have come from equal or lower levels. So lower G5 or FCS guys. Like, currently right now, like, two of our best players are FCS kids, former FCS kids. And, we have a linebacker that's leading the country in tackles. He came from ETSU. We have a left tackle who's doing really well who came from ETSU. We have a corner that was a freshman last year that's leading the country in interceptions. And he happened to be here when we got here, and he's crazy. He's 6'2" and moves really well, and he had 2 picks versus Memphis. He had 2 picks versus Navy. I mean, he had another pick versus ACU. I mean, kid's got 5 picks in 6 games, and he's an unbelievable player, unbelievable worker. But, those guys, they like you said, they have the mentality like, all right, like, I'm here to prove myself right, not prove you wrong. Like, I'm in here to show everyone that I can play at the highest level. Like, ball is still ball.
It's a great line.
Ball is still ball. Like, it doesn't matter.
Doubt.
Like it's still, 110 and 53 and a third. Like, we're going to get the job done, and I'm going to come out here and play. Like, it's all relative. So, we have a lot of those guys, and we're looking for more of those guys. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I love those kids. I was that kid. I was the kid that was an angry kid.
Yep. Just pissed.
I'm pissed. I threw away my own opportunity, but then I'm like, all right, now I'm going to take it out on everyone I play, and Coach was an FCS quarterback, an undersized FCS quarterback, at Tennessee Tech, and he's got that same demeanor and mentality. Like, okay, count me out. Like, I'm short. I don't have a great arm, but I'm going to go win a whole bunch of games. And he was the 3-time captain on his team, and it's like, we're going to embrace that. We're going to push that. We're going to look for kids. And when you recruit, you got to really evaluate that, when we get into January in the speed dating process, you only got
Yeah. Well, they just
hours.
announced yesterday, right, that the transfer portal window is now going to be that one-time window from that January time. So you only got one shot at it to kind of hit it right and go. So it should be interesting. But Coach, I think what you're saying, and it's kind of you look at some of the other coaches on your staff too, like Ryan Schwitzer, the wide receivers coach, undersized, phenomenal receiver. Right, but like has that chip on his shoulder of like, here's what it is and here's how it goes. So that's kind of what your roster has been, is kind of there. And like you said, I think the emergence of just guys that want to play and better and get developed, right, I think is the key at any level. And like you said, ball is ball, and that's kind of what it is. It really comes down to like the pureness of it. And that's kind of where you're at, and playing in that conference too, right? Like UConn that conference too, right, Dave?
UConn's not in it.
UConn's independent.
Oh,
yeah.
But UConn, listen, a lot of the point about the FCS part is I think is very valid because of from a resource standpoint, like the group of 5 schools are in a lot of those similar situations from a resource standpoint. I mean, UConn, where I played at, look, UConn, when I played, was FCS. They transitioned to they were Big East for a long time when the Big East folded. Then they've been trying to find their way since. And, we're lucky we have a real good head coach that's done a great job, Jim Mora. But it's but we're, a lot of the programs in the group of 5, going back to when I played in the 90s, a lot of those schools were actually FCS schools, so everybody began to chase the dollars. What happened was, as money became a big deal in college sports, it wasn't that there wasn't that much money getting thrown around in the 90s. But as people realized it was, going to start to happen, everyone started to chase Division I. So schools like UConn and there's a boatload of them.
Look, you can look at a handful
of programs. So,
James Madison, Delaware, right? Like all those programs.
They're all Division I. But it's interesting because I think your point is really, really valid. And I'd love for you to talk more about it from a also from a performance standpoint too. Those players from lower levels, right? That have moved up. I've seen the same thing. There's a tremendous amount of success from guys that are moving up, like let's say one level, FCS to group of 5. That's probably where the greatest success has been, right? Like one level up. And but I've noticed it all over the place. Lateral, obviously, I would say like if you're if you're group of 5, you get, if an Alabama third string guy wants to come, you're probably going to take him because of the potential that person has, right? But it doesn't mean that he's going to have the attitude that you need, right? Coming from a bigger program. So you have to kind of filter through that. But those guys who are hungry, that have already been a star at a certain level, it's really not as big a jump as people think, because this guy's already been a star. You're not talking about a guy that's just a starter at the FCL. You're talking about a guy who stood out and now is really ready to move up, and he's playing above the level he's at, and now he could come over. Talk about those guys when you come in there, and what they're like when you get them in the performance area too.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm partial to those guys, right? Because
Right.
I was one of those smaller school guys. I was an NAIA player that, I was part of a team that went up to North Dakota and blew them out in the Fargo Dome. So like, you when you inherit those guys, like, it's from a performance standpoint, just because of the resources, and there's a lot of good D2 and FCS strength coaches. So I'm not trying to knock anybody, but
Right.
the financial, but like the financial situation is what it is. Like, they don't eat a lot. They don't. So like we had Jaquan Adams come in, and he's our starting left tackle, and he's 275 pounds in January. And then you fast forward to going into camp, his weight is 315, and he's put on significant amount of muscle mass just because of the consistency in his diet, because we do have resources available to feed him twice a day. We do have the supplements, we do have the vitamins, all those things, but then also the consistency in our training, right? Like, and also how many coaches we have on the floor. Like FCS, when I was at Northwestern State, I had me and 2 GAs, and they all had 5 to 6 sports. So
Right.
shit, sometimes when I was in the middle of a football group, I'd look around and it'd be just me because they had to run off and train a team. Like, it is what it is. Like, so for us to be able to have what Justin here does, our AD, he's allowed us to have a staff of 5 for football. He's allowed us to have the nutritional resources. He's allowed us to invest in the technology that has really kind of shaped our training and helped audit our program and allow consistent feedback on where we actually stand versus where we think we stand, and are we making actual gains in progress, or are we just pretending that we are doing that? I'm big on seeing it to believe it. I don't want to believe it then see it. I want to see it, then I'll believe it. So these guys come in and they're a little bit underdeveloped, and they struggle at first, but my thing is if my standards can be met by a guy walking up the streets, my standards aren't very good.
Right.
I want them to come in. I want them to have to establish themselves and really, work at meeting the standards of what we deem or, being in shape, being strong, being explosive, being fast. And we're going to consistently give them what the parameters are, what that looks like. Like, I think you have to give that to them. We give them combine numbers all the time. Like, hey, you want to play in the NFL? Okay. Or average safety runs 4, 5, 6 at the combine. What are you running? Average
Right.
safety is jumping 36, or where you at? So like giving them that feedback, and then having the ability to really show progress over time with these guys. And then, you give them the before after pictures. That's more for them than for us, and, I gave Quan his before and after, and he was just stunned. Because, if every day you're not going to see it, but you look back and you've gained 40 pounds, and you've gained, 25 pounds of that being muscle, and you're like, man, I look like a different person. I am a different person. It gives them confidence, right? And that's at the end of the day. Like, I'm a huge custom model fan. You familiar with Mike Tyson's
Oh,
trainer?
of course.
So, because I'm a New York guy, right? So, like, custom auto, like, I love them. And it's like, you have to give the fighter the belief they can win in any circumstance, right? Like, they're a god when they walk in the ring. And that's the mentality as a strength coach. Like, my grandfather was a boxing trainer, and it's like, he takes that same approach with his fighters, building up the psychology of it. Is like, when they walk out there, they need to feel like, man, I can't get beat. Like, I've done everything up to my point in this time. So, like, what I do like about these lower level guys, to get back to your question, is like, they're very humble, and they're very grateful, and they tend to be some of your hardest workers, because they understand they're stepping up a level in competition. They understand they have to prove themselves more than the kid that came from Texas A&M or Alabama. They do have that chip on their shoulder, because their path wasn't the same as the 4-star that went there,
Yeah.
had the $100,000 in NIL for 2 years and decided, you know what, I'm not going to play here. Let me go try somewhere else.
Right.
So there's a lot of gratitude, there's a lot of humility, and there's a lot of toughness that I see come out of these lower level guys, man. Like they want to be great, and they're willing to sacrifice a lot more, and they're more open to coaching too. I think that's the biggest thing as well, is like the mentoring process, because everything's new to them. They're like, hey, I'm like, hey, you got breakfast? They're like, what do you mean I got breakfast? I'm like, dude, we got breakfast from 6 to 7. It's provided for you. You got to be there. It's mandatory. They're like, hold on, I get free breakfast? I'm like, yes. Like, go eat, bro. Like, go get it done. They're not used to that.
Yeah, it's
Right.
and on the other side where it's not, oh, I got to get up at 6. Why I got to go get breakfast. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, whoa, I get breakfast. Awesome. Like, here we go. Like, that's a different mentality. And I try to say it all the time, like, especially, coaching high school guys and whatnot, like, they just don't know. They just don't get it. You know what I mean? Like, it's because they're young and they're just trying to get into that process. But it's like, man, every bit of this, like, at some point, a lot of you aren't going to play the next year, right? Like, you're not going to go on to play college football, and like all of the this or all that or whatever, the whining, the complaining, stuff like that. Like, you're going to miss this facet. You know what I mean? Like, everything you're complaining about, when you have it, you're going to regret, and so you got to give it your all, and you just got to play hard, and you kind of got to go from there. So I definitely think it's something that, it's a benefit to your guys and kind of how they do things like that. And whatnot. What does your in-season strength stuff look like, Coach? Like, in terms of how you guys go about approach to in-season strength?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is you want to control volume, right? Because I mean, stress is stress. So whatever they're getting in practice, you don't want to overload it to where they can't recover from it, right? And then the other side of it is whatever they're getting in practice, like you don't want to have to train again, right? Like, because now you're overdoing it. So for me, it's maintaining the same level of intensity all the way throughout. Like, off season, in season, we're going to be in the ballpark of 60 to 90% of what their 1 rep max is. Like, we're always going to be in that area. Now, I might get there in different ways, but we're always going to be in that bandwidth. It's the volume that's going to be the biggest differential, right? And then the frequency of training. So, they're used to 4 days, sometimes 5 days of training in the off season. I mean, as far as from a weightlifting standpoint is concerned, our travel guys are getting 2 real days. One really 3 days if you count our recovery workout on Sunday, but 2 real days throughout the week on Tuesday and Wednesday. And that's going to be the biggest difference. We're going to make sure that we don't, we're very, very moderate with how much volume we have, how many reps, how many sets we do, and then the other side of it is we're going to monitor their levels of strength through some of our force plate metrics that we look at every day. We're going to see and test them on some certain things and see what their their concentric force output is. We're going to see what their modified RSI is. We're going to look at some of these things and make judgment calls based off that. You got to be very adaptable in season to where you can set your terms in the off season, right? As a strength coach, I know what I'm doing Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yes.
I know exactly sets, reps, right? Like, in season, we're getting back from ECU probably at 4:00 in the morning, and we're going right into temple prep. Like, I have to modify depending on how the game went, how the travel went, what the injury status of these kids are. I have to look at all these factors and be a lot more responsive than I am preemptive. So, it's a balance, and that's where we're lucky. We have resources, like we have VBT here. We have things that measure bar speed that, so we can be
that's awesome.
Yeah, we could be more of a sniper approach versus a shotgun approach, right? We're not just trying to hit the target.
Nice.
We're trying to hit the bullseye. So, like, we're going to make sure that we're in that range to where we're training properly for that athlete at that time, especially our real guys. Like, I mean, realistically, like, there's 40 guys you're winning and losing with, right? Like, everyone else, it has a role and is important, but they're supportive in nature. Like, those 40 guys, like, if I lose our starting left tackle, I'm done. It's going to be a rough 6 games coming up. You know what I'm saying? And if he's not performing well because exactly. And if I'm interfering with his performance because I'm overtraining him from my standpoint, like, then I'm doing that kid a disservice. So it's always that balancing act and understanding and having the humility, like, this is not my time. I'm supportive right now. I'm a support staff member. Like, I'm here to make sure they can play at a high level, and ball is first. So like I got to put ball first. I got to take ball into consideration every decision I make, and I always got to put the performance on Saturdays in front of whatever ego or attention seeking I may think I need versus, the opposite.
No doubt about it. I think that's the recovery part of it, and making sure they're always healthy is that allows them to perform better, and that's always a struggle in the football season. What elements of like speed development, like where do you stand in like speed development versus conditioning, and how you guys approach that part of from a training element?
Yeah, that's a great question. As actually I was discussing this with the head strength coach at Kansas yesterday about this. There is times in the year where output, right? So performance, output is more important than capacity. So capacity is going to be how much you can withstand. So, and that's what conditioning is, right? Like being able to be in a specific state to handle a certain environment over time. Okay, so there's gonna be a time where performance is more important than output. Okay, that's
Right.
gonna be the early off season. That's gonna be driving speed numbers. Like I am a speed guy. I love increasing speed. I'm good at increasing speed and power. It's something that I kind of like hung my hat on for a long time as a head strength coach. Like that's something I'm good at. But there comes a point in time where the capacity side is more important than the speed side. And I know there's a big movement with feed the cats, and I know
Yep.
Tony, me and Tony are very close.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but like there comes a point in time where you have to have the repeatability of the explosive nature of your play. And that only comes from increasing your capacity. That only comes from increasing your conditioning. Now, where me and Tony agree is like, I'm going to get a lot of our conditioning from specific means. So we're always going to go from general to specific. Okay. So as we get closer in the continuum of training in the off season, closer to season, is where we really ratchet up how much, like what football we're doing, how much football we're doing, the nature of it, the size of the drills, all those different things. And we're going to make sure that we're creeping closer to it. And we're going to get our conditioning through those elements. Okay. But we're not going to neglect some of the repeat sprint ability that you need that it needs to be specific in training, like the conditioning side of it. We're not going to neglect the tissue stress capacity that comes along with, playing O-line. Like you have to be able to punch over 120 times in a practice. Like you have to. Like the only way to do that is to do something similar in nature to that extent and at that volume. Like because the biggest thing for me is I don't want them walking into the first day of practice or the first week at camp and experiencing that much workload for the first time at that time. Like I want their threshold, their capacity threshold to be much more than what they're going to experience going into that first time. Because then you look at the recovery rate increases, right? Like if I'm in better shape and I'm accustomed to what's coming my way, I could recover at a faster rate. So I can have a better practice day to day to day to day. All right, because I'm able to recover from those practices at a faster rate. Specificity wise, like I'm gonna get the accelerations, the deaccelerations, some of the collision aspect of it. I'm gonna have all of those built in as we get closer, so that the first time they go and have to change direction over 120 times isn't the first practice. They have the capacity to do it 150 times walking into that practice where they're going to do it 100 times. So again, we're always aiming to have a higher reserve in any category, any category, training category that you would consider. We want that to be higher than what they're going to experience, so that we know we got money in the bank, right? Like, all right, hey, I got $150 in the bank. I spent 100. I'm not freaking out because I got $50 left. But if I got to spend $99 of that 100 and I only have $1 left, and I know I'm going to have to spend $100 the next day, I'm in trouble. So we're always going to make sure that when we're training, again, we go from output to capacity. We go from general to specific, and we're going to integrate ball, man. Like it's great to have, we had 59 guys clean over 300 pounds, which was ridiculous, right? But if
Yeah.
if 59 guys, if they didn't get better at football in some capacity in that
Right.
8 weeks of summer, like what are we talking about?
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, we're a great Olympic lifting team. That's great. Like put a platform on the 50-yard line. That's when we'll win. Like we got to get better at football. Like it has to happen. So and the only way
Yes.
to do that is to get exposures, and there's ways to do that. We do collision prep stuff. We do a lot of leverage drills. We do small sided games, or like tag drills or chase drills, like where we can condense the field. We can be very specific in a training element we're trying to hit, and we're trying to really attack and emphasize while still having some of that gamifying it and having it very similar to what one part of the game of football is going to be.
I'm curious your thoughts on, because this is the one area and I'm glad you brought up Tony, because we've had Tony on a couple times. And the one area I always go back and forth on in my own mind with respect to conditioning and development is this area of workload where Tony really wants you at a very small percentage, of what your actual game output is going to be, and how applicable is that actually to what can happen in the real world from a practice standpoint. What I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm,
Yeah,
I'm talking
I do. And
I'm curious your thoughts on that, because that's always one of the areas that I kind of have a hard time with. I don't know how to even apply that still yet. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah. And you got Brad, who's out there in Illinois winning state championships. He adopted the model, and, but you look at it and he's practicing probably less than most high school coaches. He's definitely practicing less than most high school coaches are. He puts a premium on being fresh and fast. So to me, I don't think it's that off the beaten path. I do think that just like anything, people can take things to extremes. I take one ibuprofen, I have a headache, it doesn't go away. I take 10, I'm going to the emergency room. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think there is a happy medium in all this. I really do. I think it's a great concept. Like, they've done research that shows the less you're fatigued, the less you get hurt. The less you get hurt, the better your players play. Like, it goes hand in hand, right? So if you're out there and you're just mudding these kids just because we need to be tough,
that's stupid. Yeah, of course.
If you're in college, you're recruited bad. Okay, that's what it tells you. And if you're in high school,
you didn't do your job.
Yeah, or it's the cards you've been dealt. It is what it is. You can't go recruit. I mean, a lot of high schools recruit, but if you're in a district,
I'm at one that you can't.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's just kind of look. You get what you get. So what are we gonna do? Am I gonna pound these kids into the ground and grind them and crush them? Now look, again, I think there is some happy medium but you have to know your players and know your team.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking just physically, right? Because that stuff you can figure out in the weight room and all that. But the other stuff, is crushing these kids even going to do anything for them in regard to the mental side of it, right? Or is it just going to be
that's a big point right there.
I'm more thinking of not on the rushing guys, but of the prescription based of many times you run plays, right? How many overall reps? I almost feel because there hasn't been enough studies yet. You know what I mean? Obviously we all have the GPSs, you can track all the loads and all that kind of stuff, but there hasn't been enough studies yet where it's this percentage of your game load has contributed to X success.
Yeah.
And Tony, who I love Tony, but it's it works because I look at the results of a team winning a championship. And to me, that's not the only, there are I could look at in North Jersey, I could look at Bergen Catholic and Don Bosco, and I know they tear the pants off those kids, and they're the best two teams in North Jersey. Is their method the correct way? Probably not, but I'm just saying because they have the best players. They literally have the best players. They're able to recruit, right? So
talent's always going to be the main predictor of success.
It's always going to be.
So if you got good kids, they're gonna play good. So it masks bad coaching. It really does at times. Now I will say one thing I really agree with Tony on is if you do overwork them, the psychological effect it has on them, and they start to really not look forward to practice, and then you're not getting as intentful skill development.
Absolutely.
Again, it's extremes to me. To your case on there's not enough research. There is a ton of research. You got to look up Tim Gabbett.
Okay.
All right. He has this acute to chronic workload. He talks about these yardages, and then I'll just be honest with you. If you people that have adopted GPS.
Tim Gavitt, coach? Tim Gavitt?
Tim Gavitt, Gabbet, I believe, or maybe
Got
two
it.
T's. Okay. There's a ton of research on workload management. There is. Like, there's a lot out there. And, to me, like, you want to be fresh in games. And but also at the same time, an ability to handle high workloads is also a predictor of injury resiliency. Right.
Interesting.
So it's like it's this double-edged sword. It's how you go about it.
Right.
Because it's all perspective, right? So like you get
And
one of
when
these
you
kids.
go about it, probably too.
Yeah, I took over when I was at FAU. Willie Tiger took over for Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin does not like to practice. At least what our kids told us. This is coming from the guys on the team, right? Like they were an hour and 30 to hour 40 minutes tops.
Right.
Okay. Coach Taggart comes from Harbaugh's coaching tree. I don't know if you're familiar. You are going to be out there a long time. A long time. I'm talking 2 hour 45 to 3:15.
Wow.
All right. So in terms of that, like the first year was a major struggle to keep kids motivated to practice. Well, because in perspective, you're basically doubling the amount of time that you're practicing. Now, fast forward 3 years, and they're used to these 3-hour practices. And Tom Herman comes in. He's like, all right, we're going to be 2 hours and 15 minutes. Okay. And all the kids that came back and we practiced this 2 hour 50, they were like, this is the easiest practice in the world. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's all relative to what they've been accustomed to, what they've been exposed to, right? Like our kids were way fresher in practice, even though I'll be honest with you, 2 hours and 15 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
It is a long time. From a workload standpoint, you're going to hit 90 to 100% of game loads. Like that's what I've seen, at least through my time with GPS. So I think it's a balancing act. It's like, okay, like how many exposures that during the week do you get is another big question, right? Because like the majority of the models for practice are Tuesday hard, Wednesday hard, Thursday a little less, Friday walkthrough, play, right? Okay, well, if you're banging on Thursday and you're in shells, like studies have shown, and Tom Meyerlinsky is a guy that put me on this. He was the former Jags head strength coach. He put me on the collision research, right? Like when you get hit, your body, the stress of a collision is way different than adaptations you experience through strength training and through sprint work, right? Like it's a significantly different trauma, and it takes longer to recover from. So it inhibits your muscle output. It slows down your brain's responsiveness. Like even if you get hit in the arm, like there's a process that goes along with this. So if you're banging on Thursday, you're going to be slower on Saturday.
Correct.
That's how I look 100%. At it, right?
I agree.
And if you overdo it on Tuesday and Wednesday, it's going to take way longer to get you out of that hole going into Saturday as well. So for me, it's always a balancing act. I always ask my coach, what do you need, like the minimal amount to be successful?
Right.
So then let's do that. And what we'll do is we'll adjust it from there. If it needs to be a slight little bit more, okay, you just understand you're going to have to pull it from somewhere else.
Right.
Our fast Friday can't be 45 minutes. It's got to be 30 minutes because you added 15 minutes to Tuesday, coach. It's always a balancing act, right? Because all we're trying to do is make sure whatever stimulus we give these kids, and I'm talking whatever prescription of practice we give these kids, there has to be the recovery window to follow it, or else you're going to put them in the hole. And then you're going to be like, why are these kids sluggish? Why are these kids? You hear all the time.
But I think that's a tremendous point. Is I've always thought, like I always had a little issue with even doing any work the day before a game. Like I understand why the coaches do it, like a fast Friday and stuff like that. But I think that like the recovery of the day before, and to be able to get yourself recovered fully, because I mean, the better you feel, the better the more effort you're going to give in the game. Like there's definitely a direct correlation to that. Like if you're going in, like you said, a little bit banged up, you're not sure if this part of your body is where it needs to be before the game, that means you're just gonna not go quite as hard subconsciously, right? Because you're worried about this, and maybe you're not going as quite as fast as you need to. But I agree with that. Like they're definitely. So I'm guessing obviously most coaches now are there's a level of front loading, right? In what once you recover from the last game, you try to get a good amount of that work in those first couple of days, so you can really get light going into the game, so they can recover completely. Which is interesting. We talk about Lane Kiffin, like obviously he just feels like, hey, we're running this system, we're in and we just want everybody fresh and ready to go, and everybody knows what they need to know. They've worked in the skill, they need the skill, and then let's get out. It's so interesting how the two worlds are so different. Very successful coaches. Obviously, Harbaugh's won national championship, but it's like how the philosophies are so widely different. It really is amazing that you could really skin the cat multiple different ways. But in the end game, you want them to be healthy, right? You want them to be healthy going in, no matter what it is you're doing, because they're going to play better. But it is so interesting when you tell me that, like the practices from like what Taggart was doing to what Lane was doing. That must be very difficult for you as a strength and conditioning coach, depending on depending on who your head coach is.
It significantly changes the offseason again, because if capacity is one of my main goals and improving their threshold for capacity, like I got to know that, right? I got to like the first thing when I sat down with Trey, I was like, "What does your practices look like? Like how? Like what do you expect? How long are they like?" Because a lot of the duration is going to equal the total workload, right? It is what it is. And then what style of offense, what style of defense are we going to play? When I was,
it's all plays into that, man. Like that's a lot. Like guys don't understand that.
Harbaugh, he's going to slow the clock down. He's going to bleed the clock. He's going to control it. He's going to run power football, like almost old Alabama Saban, right? Like that's what he does. I worked for Hugh Freeze, and man, we're trying to snap the ball every 15 seconds. That's way different that's way different. That's a whole different world. And that's a different training stimulus.
That's a whole different time in the off season of how we're training our guys. And then obviously recruiting goes as well. You're going to recruit certain guys to that system. But for you, Coach, I think one of the fortunate aspects of it is, you've been around different programs and different, you know what I mean? So you have that background of, okay, this is what we're going to do here, or this is the type of guys that we're going to get here, and how to plug them in to that program. But I think one of the best things that I heard you say was that it's a constant, you're constantly tweaking things and changing things, and it's a give and take, right? Like, because that's exactly what it is. You got to be adaptable, right? You go and put that whole plan together. All of a sudden, a flight gets delayed, and now they're not getting back till a certain time after a game. Well, there goes that plan out the window. We got to work and go forward, right? Like, that's just part of what you did.
Yeah, you guys there? You hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
I got you.
It's such a major part of it, right? Like we're problem solvers. I tell my assistants all the time. That's what we're here to do, man. Like we're special. We're special forces. Like you give us the mission, and we're gonna figure that shit out. Like we're gonna find a way. Buddy. And it's so like you can't be married to one thing. And then the other side of it is you have to be educated and competent enough, like you said, to understand and be able to problem solve problems that you probably haven't had, or deal with situations that you've never been in before, right? So like your foundation from a training, just philosophy has to be sound. Like I know what I am. I know how to train. Like I know what my perfect world scenario looks like, but when you get your coach and he throws, a grenade in that room, like you got to figure it out. Like it's not at the end of the day, again, it's you're getting his team ready. I think that's a big part of this. And it's, you get some of these strength coaches, that are very egotistical. Like that it's my off season.
I think that's great, and I love that outlook by you as look, man, this is his team, right? Like, because I deal with a lot, right? When it comes to the high school guys, right? And that's a totally different world, obviously, not on the same level, but it's like, yo, man. You're this position coach, like just go do your job, right? Or, well, this or that. I said, that guy's the head coach, man. Like his name's on it. It doesn't say, so-and-so's offensive line didn't play well today, or so-and-so's defensive backs got burnt. Like, no, dude, it says head coach's name lost, right? So
Yep.
you're there to preach his message and preach exactly what he wants you, and go do it. Your dude, he's going to tell you what to do. You go do it. Right. And I think that's part of this. You see a lot of younger guys, they want to be out in front. Right. Like, I think Cochran from Alabama was that, because he became something bigger that, like, not bigger than the program, but strength guys start to see what they could bring when, like, you have that little whatever to it. But ultimately, man, if you're not preaching the same message, like, how are you going to get anything done? And
I mean, it's a loyalty thing, right?
Like,
it like I tell my, like, the way I'm going to show my loyalty to my head coach is preaching and serving these players the way that he sees it fit. Like, this is the way he wants it done. Like, I'm going to show it. Like, that's how I'm going to show my gratitude for my position, you know, like, and like you said, like, you get these guys that sometimes they put themselves above the program, but it always catches up with them.
Yeah,
you know, it always affects him. You know, and I get it. Like, Cochran was put in a position in Alabama where Alabama admin was pushing him because his likability and his dynamic personality, and it helped recruiting and all that. I mean, you got to play a role. Like, I get it. But, you know, there comes a point in time where if you're not aligned with the head coach, you're hurting the organization way more than you're helping it.
Correct.
And as a guy in such a prominent leadership position like I am here, like, that's major damage. That isn't like recoverable damage. Like,
no, that's like that sets you behind the eight ball, like, big time for you. Like, you know, for where you're at, like, that would be a totally different beast.
Yeah,
I really great stuff. And you know what, the bottom line is you're hired because you're a valued advisor to the head coach, and so it's not just following his message. That's obviously very important. But being able to be what you are, a trusted resource, meaning you can come to that person and say, hey, I think if we do this, it might help you. You know what I mean? And I think that, you know, that's why they hire, you know, coaches like yourself, because you have that experience and you can go to them and they know, okay, yeah, this is coming from the right place. I think those are two, that loyalty aspect to follow what the head coach wants to get done as far as his vision. But at the same time, you're a trusted advisor that if you see something that maybe you could help him with that might need fixing, right? Like, that might, like, you'd be like, hey, this might, you know, we're doing this practice wise, mate, you know, like you said, like, hey, you're going to have to steal 15 minutes from somewhere else. You know what I mean? From a workload standpoint. Like, and then you start to see those results, right? And he's like, man, you know what? Like, we need more of this, you know what I mean? From Joey. Like, we need Joey to pipe up more on this kind of stuff, because this stuff is working for us. And I think that those are the two things. And that is a phenomenal balancing act. I think that, you know, guys like yourself who really are like a fast riser that understand that, you know what I mean? That balance between loyalty and being able to be a valued advisor, because that the hardest, haven't been, you know, at the high school level, but haven't been a head coach a lot of times in a lot of different things. That's the hardest thing, like, on your staff. No, even when you hire a guy that's good from a skill standpoint, you know, or a coaching standpoint, when you get that, like, this, I can trust this guy implicitly to give me good advice, and then also to you know, stay in line with the message. It's like, man, and there's no coincidence. You're gonna win. You get a lot. Everybody in the staff ends up being like that, or the vast majority ends up being like that. You're gonna win ball games because you're all gonna be on the right page to get things done. And it makes my guess would be it probably makes it a phenomenal experience too at the same time. And you probably know of instances already as a coach where that wasn't the case. Like, you heard about this coach over here who's backstabbing somebody, and you're like, oh, it's inevitable that things are going to go wrong. You know what I mean? Because this is going on here, and there's factions in the program, and and great head coach. Like Nick Saban used to get obviously there's so many videos on Nick Saban getting that right in line quick. Like when he sees any of that, like he gets it in line quick. It's like basically get in line or you're going to be gone, talk about, before we let you go, am I on point with that kind of like, that's kind of the vibe that you feel you're in, the role that you feel you're in, and as you see yourself as a coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I just got a call. I want to make sure you guys can hear me. You hear me
Yeah,
still?
I
Okay.
can hear you good. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you have to provide the head coach with usable information and real information, right? Like he's naturally going to be surrounded by a lot of yes men.
Right.
Now, I'm fortunate enough to have a very intuitive staff here, a bunch of guys that aren't like are given the platform from the head coach to speak honestly, but B also, they come from a good place, a genuine place. There's not really too many hidden agendas going on, which
Right.
could derail some of the information gathering process, right? Because if you start shaping opinions of the head coach to benefit only you, like that's a major issue, right? But we have a bunch of guys here that kind of see big picture, kind of and see what's the benefit of the good of the great, not just me. And for me, it's always I have to look and figure out what his blind spots are, and I got to protect him from them. Like that's my main thing. And the other thing is I have to keep things off his plate that he doesn't have to worry about. Like I told him on my interview, I was like, some strength coaches are policemen. I'm a firefighter. I'm going to put things out before they get to you. I'm going to make sure that you can stay focused. And if it doesn't concern you and I don't need you involved, I'm not involving you so that you can stay focused on the task at hand, which is recruiting, fundraising, and winning. Like
Right.
that's it. So for me, it's like if I can get that done in my capacity, in my role, and I can have my staff help me out in those areas. And then also I can help those position coaches out so they feel like I'm a resource. Like they can feel like, again, I'm a firefighter. I don't want the position coaches. I've seen that before. And I've made that mistake where you overcorrect too much stuff. And now position coaches don't trust you. Yeah, you got the head coach's trust. He loves you. But position coach is like, oh, that guy. And that's a
Right.
hard spot to be in. And for me, it's that balancing act of helping all parties involved for the good of the organization, never falling off that alignment. Okay. But how do I minimize the distractions for these position coaches and specifically the head coach? How can I take more off their plate, allow them to do what they're here to do, allow me to do what I'm here to do, which is really to develop, these and mentor men is what I'm here to do. Okay. And how do I do it in a way that's always going to align with what the head coach wants and the organization needs? Like, yeah, there's been tough conversations, but I think that's having emotional maturity and good communicative skills, and like understanding situations as well. But I think when people see that you are a good dude and you're coming from a good place, it's really easy now for me to speak up in staff meetings like, hey guys, like I'm seeing this, like we got to get this fixed. And it's not like the Snickers and the eye rolls. It's like, damn, you're right. You're right. Versus if they didn't believe in me or they thought I was coming from a place I'm trying to push my own agenda, there's going to be a way different response to that than if they truly think I'm coming from a genuine place and I really care about them and the program. It's like it's always that ability to, again, my servant leadership extends to the coaches.
No doubt.
And it has to, and they have to feel that. And then when they trust that, again, when you build trust, it's pretty easy to get things done. It's pretty easy to increase efficiency. It's pretty easy to have those constructive, hard, conflictive conversations. It really is, and then, like you said, like your opinion gets valued more. I can't walk in and demand they value my opinion on day one. I got to prove it over time that I am this guy that they think I am, and that my word is what it is, and my integrity is what it is, and my opinion is valid. Like it makes sense from a competency standpoint, but also from a trustworthy standpoint as well.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Man, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. Phenomenal having you on. I learned a ton. Every time I start writing things down, I know this is a really good podcast. There's a bunch of things that were great that I think I learned. I think Coach D probably would echo that. much continued success to you, Coach. I know you guys are building that
Yeah,
program
man.
up, and it's awesome seeing what you're doing. I can't thank you enough for coming on today.
No, I appreciate you guys giving me the platform, man. I really do.
No doubt about it. Have a
Hey,
great
man,
day. Good
anytime.
luck this week, Coach.
You too.
Thanks, Coach.
Bye. Great podcast, dude. That was awesome. I enjoyed the insight. By the way, I want to read that study. Yeah, I'm going to get that study. Tim Gabbett. I already wrote that down there.
With a G, right?
Yeah, with a G.
Tim Gabbett with a G.
Yeah, Gabbett with a G.
Yeah. Look, I like guys like that, right? I mean, say what you want about how he came up and all that kind of thing. Like, you just know he's in it. Like, he's in it because, he's been at some places, right? Like, hey, and look, the guy he was with at Ole Miss, right? He's a Montclair State guy. Just always throw that out there. Right. But I'm just saying those guys come from like humble beginnings. You know what I mean? He was a JUCO guy. So he's got that fight mentality in him no matter what. And I think that's what like Tulsa is, right? Like that's, they're where they're at. They're not going to get, the 5 stars of whatever, right? Like they're going to be scrappy and they're going to have to fight. And when your strength coach is like that, man, it makes, that's just how it rolls. So I don't know. I learned a shit ton of stuff, like, because I just think, and look, he's obviously extremely knowledgeable, right? When it comes to everything, like hammering out that. I like their philosophy over, in that overall. I'm curious to see where it goes.
So I thank God for ChatGPT. I got a quick summary. So the Gabbett approach, he talks about training load must be above an athlete's current capacity to drive adaptation, but not so far as to exceed tissue tolerance. That's really
so you need to know like where your guys are at. That's always what it comes back to. Is you got to know
what level can force the body to adapt to greater stress, basically, so you become better. And then it says progression should be gradual, systematic over time to bridge the gap. Tony talks about that to the ceiling. Monitor both acute and chronic loads and be especially aware of abrupt spikes in load. That's the biggest issue relative to what athlete is accustomed to. So you have to really monitor that. Recognize that each athlete's tolerance differs, which obviously, so adjust load progression based on individual capacities. So that's the toughest part in a team atmosphere, right? Track or wrestling.
That's different.
Or swimming. Those are a lot easier because you're individualized.
Right, it's you.
Good load management balances maximize performance adaptations while minimizing injury risk. So I think like that's one of the things like where you talk about going. Tony talks about going sprinting like 2 or 3 sprints, like a couple days a week, all out.
Done.
Yeah, like so you do it, you're done. It's not long, and then use load metrics wisely and not dogmatically. Context matters. So like where they are. That's very interesting. I'm gonna see if I can get more information on that. Good stuff.
I would love to just be able to like measure it. Like I'd love to be able to measure it all. You know what I'm saying? Like I just putting those GPS on those dudes, just to figure out like, dude, what do we really, you know what I'm saying? Like
they want you to buy. Like I talked to who we have on, and they don't really do one. Like I'm like, well, I mean,
no, you got to buy like 5.
There's a business right there, like consumer based, like
yeah, like you can't buy one go route.
No. Well, but go route's a little. That's a team, definitely a team based thing. Whereas, like, think about where not just the team aspect of it, but like individuals that want. I'm telling you that's a huge go route is not a huge market for individuals, right? Like me just having one, one go route's not going to help me. It's really a team thing. But the capacity for any individual to monitor their load in any sport they're playing all the time, any individual, like it was definitely designed without understanding that there's millions of athletes that are way below the college threshold that parents would buy it. There's no doubt. There's no doubt they would buy it individual, and you could have a subscription base and be able to make a boatload of money on it. You know, the fast money is definitely in the teams, right?
I think, because it's bulk, right? That's what it is. But I think if you really want to do it, right, and you get the track coach on board with you, and you get, somebody else, and you pool it together, and you're like, dude, let's get 10.
I'm saying the consumers will buy it, individuals, just like they buy in Dick's.
The
nicest glove, the glove they can get. I'm telling you, parents,
hell yeah, be like, hey, or you make that the thing, like now how so many kids buy their own helmets or their own shoulder pads. Be like, hey, like you're telling me that a parent doesn't want to know what your output is at practice every day. A parent that's really like, you know what I'm saying, dude. And now you have, think about it. Now you have a parent send an email, hey, so and so did at practice. Like, what are you guys doing? Right? Like, what are you doing? Oh shit! Here we go.
I mean, listen, that holds everybody accountable to a certain aspect of it.
Oh shit!
I know.
I hope it don't get there. I'm gonna cry.
It's definitely gonna get there. 100% gonna get there. 100%.
You're the receivers coach. He ran 10 verticals. What are we doing?
Listen, how else are you gonna get your own? You think that parents will not go to do that? Meanwhile, they're spending $10,000 on batting practice. With a batting coach. You don't think they're going to spend that? Like, let's take football out of it. Football, they're definitely going to eventually do it. But let's look at basketball players or baseball players or lacrosse. One lacrosse team. The guy's probably running them to death, right? And then
the other one, they ain't doing shit.
They're not doing. So like, what
Fire and falls off the freaking whatever.
Hockey. Those
you can go down the list.
What's that?
You could go down the list in any sport. Like, just saying,
well,
like that is
big money sports. The money
that's another tool, right?
Yeah, spend a lot of money.
I think Greg Olson called them the stick and ball sports. His podcast is blowing up, dude.
Oh my God. Well, because he's going on other things as well.
He's preaching his message right now.
I think you can get. So I'm on board with most of his stuff, I would say. The one area that I think is unrealistic that he says, very unrealistic, is he said every kid should be required to play 2 sports in high school. That's never going to happen.
I don't think it. I think it's a dream, dude. He's not actually,
He said if he was a czar, that's what he would. Yeah. That's what he would.
Like, hey, you got a genie in a lamp and you got 3 wishes. Like, here you go. Like, dude, no thank you, dude. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
It's just never going to happen. Like, and then I've heard other people now, try to copy him and echo that. Like, oh yeah, I would make two. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody should be made to do anything. As coaches, we say that it makes you better, more well-rounded as an athlete, and might make you better in the long run if you get that overall 3 sports going for most of your youth, at least, because you'll develop a lot of different muscles. But there's no way, like,
see, we're looking at it from a development standpoint too. Some of these people don't look at it like that.
I look at it as a development, and then I also do look at a capacity. Like, listen, when I pulled out of baseball this year, it was capacity. It was too much. Like, it wasn't. And I noticed that my own son did not want to play. So it wasn't
that's the biggest part.
He likes baseball a lot. He loves baseball. But as soon as he's like, wait a minute, I don't want to play. Now we're like, what are we doing here? Right? Because it's my body's hurting. I'm playing for, now it becomes, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Because it makes no sense. He loves the sport. What am I going to do? Make him not like the sport? Because I want him to get some extra swings or play on a team? No. If you want the kid to like the sport and they start to resist, right? And they say, I don't want to do this. And then sometimes you got to push back and say, hey, if you want to be good, like these are the things that are necessary to be good. That's different.
You got to know that. You got to know that.
That's a learning thing. That's a learning how to work thing that kids have to learn how to work. Okay. But if it's a point where it's capacity, meaning my body's hurting, I just don't feel like being there anymore. My body's hurting. How can I don't want to do this. That immediately sends the alarms off like, okay, shut that down, because he loves the sport. Let's just play it when it's in season, and he'll love it as long as he wants to play it, and versus doing the, and I believe the same thing with 7-7. Like if my kid turned around and said to me, I don't want to play 7-on-7 in spring because I'm playing baseball or running track or whatever, I would be like, you know what? Don't do it.
Okay.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. If you don't want to do something, right, or it's too much, or it's that, like, and then you're forced to do it, you're automatically going to freaking be like just not in it, which now is going to lead to more of an injury. Like you get more hurt, or you have like you know what I mean? Like, what am I trying to say? Like where,
it's capacity.
Vulnerability of injury is when you're doing too much, because now you're
overloading.
But I'm talking even like your focus is
mentally
so elsewhere. Yeah. Like, and then it's okay. Now you're half-assed at something. You're not doing like, dude, you don't want to be here. Just it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, there's a different level of it.
And that's the part that I'm very, very okay with, which I probably would not like when I first started coaching, and maybe when you first started coaching, probably like you felt like people had to push through things, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, well, pushing through is when they're in the right mind frame. We can get them to do what they need to do. 100%. But pushing through when you've overloaded them, that's different.
That's different.
You and then you have to know where that is. You have to know.
Correct. Which is why knowing your team is so clutch.
Where that point exactly is. And I think
each individual athlete might be different. That's why, team sports are tougher too, man. You know what I'm saying? Because this kid might be able to push through it, but look, you see with it all the time with like injuries, right? Or guys that are quote banged up. Like, I mean, look, man, we're going into week 7, right? You're gonna have something, dude. If you're healthy, you either ain't playing a lick or you ain't doing what you're supposed to.
Right.
So you got to know a little bit of a difference. But every kid is different when it comes to it. You know what I mean? Like, what is like, sit me on the bench and I'm never playing again for one might be like, dude, we're rocking. Like, let's go. And and I'm not talking like, go to the trainer type stuff, but it's like, hey, like it's like you're making that decision, right? And it's, you understand what it is. If you go to the trainer and you say this, I mean, then you're going to have this outcome like, oh, well, I'm out this. What did you expect, man? Like this is what it is. Like, this is kind of what you want. You know what I mean? Like, you want to just wear the jersey and sit here. You're okay. Why don't you just tell me so I don't have to so I'm not like losing my mind when you're not here to perform.
Correct. Absolutely.
Right.
All right. Well, we're back Friday. No, Friday,
we are. Right? Listen, buddy, tomorrow. We have Justin Lima. He works with Strength Coaches Network. Good guy, good stuff. And then Friday we're gonna do 10 a.m. with head coach from Montclair State, Mikey Palazzo, and then coach from Rowan University, Pat Ruley, because they got the Breakfast Bowl this weekend. So we'll have both of them on Friday morning to talk about the lead up to the game.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll see everybody.
Dude, it's gonna be crazy.
Fun stuff. That'll be great. All right. And I'll get a good title for that one. A good I'll get something good.
Listen, Rowan won last year in overtimes, and that was at Rowan. So this one is at Montclair State. It's gonna be a little something. They got a nice little pig trophy. It's kind of cool.
That's cool.
Is it pork roll? Is it Taylor ham?
It's 100% Taylor ham. Anyway, so let's go.
Total agreement. But we're gonna be like, you know, oh, you guys are from North Jersey. That's the brand.
Yes, of
Yeah,
course we
whatever.
are.
Well, so we're not gonna. I'm not changing.
Not changing.
Awesome.
All right, have
man.
a great day. All right, bye.
Later.